ether.
Vaporum is a self-described steampunk dungeon crawler by Fatbot Games, and it's one of the more interesting titles I've come across recently. Imagine, if you will, that BioShock and Legends of Grimrock met at a bar, then went home and made sweet, passionate love into the wee hours of the morning. 9 months later would come a bouncing baby Vaporum, and today I'm here to give you my 2 cents on whether this is a lovable bundle of joy or a cursed abomination that should be purged with fire. So let's get into it. Vaporum starts off with the main character Marcus surviving a horrendous crash in the ocean and washing up in front of a titanic structure. Yeah, I know, but don't roll your eyes too hard. I'm pretty sure this is just a homage. Having no recollection of what took place and abandoned in the middle of the sea, his only choice is to enter the metal behemoth and look for a means of survival. Inside, you find an eerily empty labyrinth of iron and steam. Right away, we can see the aesthetic of Vaporum is top-notch. The sound is crisp and moody, from the churning echo of grinding gears that radiate through the hallways to the sharp sound of bursting steam piercing the background. The music is sparse, but effective when it is used. This is a game with a lot of jump scares, so expect a bunch of dramatic swells and stings. Visually, the game is okay. The graphics aren't anything great from a technical standpoint, but the devs made good use of heavy shadows and lighting to cover that up. Of course, the downside to this is the game can be super dark in some spots, so if that kind of thing bothers you, be sure to turn up the brightness some. I really like the design of every enemy and level. It may not be graphically impressive, but it's still really nice to look at. The presentation of this game is great. There is a tiny bit of repetitiveness, but not anything you'll notice too much on the first playthrough. As you explore the tower, you begin to unravel the history of it as well as Marcus's past. I really don't want to talk about the story because this has been a good review so far, and it's a shame to spoil that. But I guess since we're already here, I'll keep going. Very quickly, you figure out this is a secret facility called the Arx Vaporum, where this universe's government was doing experiments on an extraterrestrial element called fumium. Fumium was discovered from a comet in the middle of the ocean that was lying dormant, then burst open, causing a massive earthquake that triggered a tsunami. The steampunk government sent the steampunk military because they were worried this was an attack from rebels they had just fought a war against. Then, when they got to where the quake had originated and found the comet, they noticed there was a blue material leaking out of its core that made the water around it boil and filled the air with some weird blue vapor. Naturally, the steampunk government said, "Cool, let's fuck with this stuff and see what happens." Then set up a research facility called Cat Kennet, sorry if I butchered that, on an abandoned island. They find out that this blue vapor is a very potent source of energy and can do everything from power machines to give people the ability to alter reality. The slight downside being it may drive you insane or outright kill you. Unsurprisingly, there is a complete disaster like a week later, killing most of the staff and resulting in the facility needed to be buried under concrete. So after this fumium stuff causes a tsunami, boils the ocean, and gets what I can only guess were hundreds of people killed, steampunk government decides, nah bro, we just didn't get close enough, and builds the Arx Vaporum directly above the meteor site. I mean, governments are pretty dumb though, so I guess this is realistic. That's enough of the story for now. Trust me, I'll come back to it, but I want to talk about something fun again. Immediately after starting the game, you are faced with a major decision. As we've established, there are other things inside the Arx Vaporum besides Marcus. Other things that very much don't like seeing him alive, and will use any means necessary to make sure he stops doing that. Since Marcus is just a regular guy and will splatter immediately upon getting punched by, say, a giant robot, he will need to use an exosuit. Think of this as steampunk power armor, and here you decide which one you will take. Each suit supports a specific playstyle, and while overall there's a good variety of these, they break down into 3 basic categories: hit things to make them go away, shoot things to make them go away, or use gadgets, which is the steampunk equivalent of magic for all intents and purpose, to make them go away. You can mix things up quite a bit, so believe me, there is more variety here than that statement implies. I was pretty basic on my first run through, going with a pistol and shield, then going with a full gadget build on my second. But there are still a bunch of things I want to try, like dual wielding 2-handed weapons and making an elephant gun build so I can go full Teddy Roosevelt on the game. Going with one style doesn't mean you will completely ignore the others either. For example, a ranged build will want to melee weaker enemies to save ammo, while a melee build may elect to shoot something at range to soften it up before it gets close. Your main focus will be one of the 3 though. The stats are pretty straightforward, so you won't be confused about what's what. The only problem is you can't see your stats before you pick an exosuit. So I would suggest making a save before you pick, so you can look at the stat sheet and decide what you will need for the playstyle you want. This game's save system is generous, and as we'll talk about in a bit, you'll want to take advantage of it. Once all that is done, we start our journey through the Vaporum. As you go through floor by floor, you're going to encounter 2 main obstacles for progressing: puzzles and combat. So now is a good time to talk about both. Combat in this game is very similar to dungeon crawlers like Legends of Grimrock and The Quest. Fights are in real time, which means you actively control what Marcus does and don't wait in turns like Star Crawlers, for example. There is also a slow time feature that you may want to take advantage of while you're still learning the combat. Apparently this was added in a latter patch, but it feels like a natural part of the mechanics, so good choice on the devs' part. Vaporum will throw some challenging encounters at you, and one of the key rules for survival is
dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
Dodging is a huge part of the game. You will be dancing around with some enemies for so long, the 2 of you will start to look like Morticia and Gomez. Even if you build yourself with the heavy rig and a heavy shield, there are some enemies you just won't be able to go toe to toe with until the very end of the game. But even with that, you're really never safe in this game. You can be endgame level with top-notch gear and still get killed by garbage enemies if they surround you. So stay aware of your surroundings and move constantly. You also want to save often. Anytime you progress past a room or find a repair kit, which is this game's version of a med pack, you want to save. Trust me. Repair kits don't drop all that often, and it's a random chance they will at all. So if an enemy drops one, then you die and have to respawn before that fight, there's no guarantee it will drop again. Plus, due to the trial and error nature of the gameplay, you will likely be dying a lot when you first begin the game, so save often. If you view this as save scumming or just straight up cowardly, you can always try Elite Mode, which only allows one autosave at the start of each level.
No, I don't think I will.
Although, if you're the type of masochist who loves insane challenges, this game has you covered. Not only do they have Elite Mode, which limits your saves, but they also have an old school mode that disables your map. Something I'm also not brave enough to try yet. Couple these 2 options with 5 difficulty levels, and this game really can be as challenging as you want. Now, full disclosure, I haven't played on anything beyond normal difficulty, so my previous remark about any playstyle working may not be valid on the higher difficulty settings. Combat seems balanced for the most part, but I'm not a fan of how much this game loves to gank you. Constantly having huge mobs of enemies appear in tiny rooms and sealing all the doors starts to feel cheap very quickly. Thankfully, most of the enemies are designed fairly, except for these fucking things. All in all, the combat is fun and engrossing. And when you combine that with the fact the game offers a lot of different build varieties, there is a strong incentive to play the game multiple times. Now that we've looked at fighting, let's take a look at those puzzles. Puzzles play a very large role in Vaporum. You'll have to complete multiple ones on each floor if you want to advance to the next. Normally, I hate puzzle-heavy games because my brain is tiny and I like to just pick up things and hit people with them. But I actually really enjoyed most of the puzzles in this game. They have a nice cleverness to them in that the solution is usually obvious so long as you think outside of the box a little. I did have to look up the solution to a couple, and each time I did, I wanted to dummy smack myself because the answer was so clear. These are very well designed. They have a nice variety and are fun to figure out while not making any ridiculous demands of you. Like, this isn't one of those games where you forget to look in a shoebox during the tutorial, so you're locked out of a treasure room next to the final boss. Most of the puzzles you come across contain everything you need to solve them right there in the room. The few exceptions to this are accompanied with pretty clear hints that you need to go to a different floor and find something. There are a few puzzles that cross the plane from challenging to annoying, so I would be prepared for those. But these were rare and not reflective of the overall experience. Again, as someone who doesn't normally enjoy puzzles, I had a blast with the ones in Vaporum. And if you even slightly enjoy puzzles normally, you will love the ones offered here, I'd imagine. All this being said though, the game does have a couple pretty noticeable downsides. For starters, the voice acting is, well, I'll just let you listen.
Oh my god, what was that?
How do you like my little minions? They serve me well. And you will too very soon.
Laura? I recognize your voice, but how can I hear you? How are you doing this? What have you become?
You're so pathetic!
Oh my god, woman, what did you do? Is that the devil inside you, or is it Fumium? I am so clever.
Normally, bad voice acting isn't a huge deal breaker for me. I mean, I don't expect every game to be Uncharted, but this is noticeably terrible to the point it can really break your immersion. This problem gets compounded once the story starts revealing itself and the true lackluster nature of the narrative is exposed. Games aren't movies, so the story doesn't need to be good enough to drive the entire experience, but this is pushing it for me. Which is a shame because from a world building perspective, the game does a solid job. It's like someone being a really talented singer, but none of the songs they write are any good. Do not go into this game caring about the story. Just chuckle at the cheesy voice acting and continue on with shooting or punching nautical zombies in the face. It's better that way. The gameplay and character builds are the real treat here. In my mind, while these flaws may be severe and obvious, they don't impact the overall enjoyment of the game. Vaporum is fun to play and stylish with well-crafted combat that will make anyone who loves dungeon crawlers or RPGs happy. The character build options are nice and varied, so you can come back and play multiple times to find all kinds of new ways for making Marcus a badass. So yeah, this is a game I highly recommend you pick up. As of the recording of this review, it's on sale for $7.99 on GOG. And that's an absolute steal for this. 8 out of 10. A great game with just a few flaws that stop it from being top tier. FYI, there is a prequel game coming out at some point in 2020 called Vaporum Lockdown, so I would say keep an eye out for that. Fatbot seems like a really awesome dev team who pays attention to fan feedback and constantly balances the game to make sure it's a fair and fun experience. These are the type of developers we need to support, and I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for anything they make in the future. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can be updated when I make a new one. In closing news, I had an entire script typed up for my FF7 review, and even recorded the audio for it. But then I decided I wasn't happy with it and chose to rewrite the whole thing. I honestly don't know when I'll have it done, but I do have a hard mode guide out if you're interested in that sort of thing. The Last of Us 2 comes out this month, with Ghost of Tsushima following up next month. Plus, I just bought a whole bunch of stuff off GOG's summer sale. So honestly, my next review could be any number of things. As always, if you have any games you think I should check out, feel free to let me know in the comments. Once again, thank you for watching and have a great one. I'll see you guys next time.